Dan Rubenstein, I am looking at this list.
Yeah.
We received many dozen questions that we will not have a chance to get through in just one episode, which means it's going to be a two-parter this week. We've got half the questions that we're going to put forth today, half that we're going to put forth on Thursday. Still more to come as part of our Patreon bonus episode a little bit later on in this week. And unfortunately, still some questions that are going to be on the cutting room floor because we got a bit of an outpouring here when we put out the call for not just questions about college football, but also across social media. Let us know the mascot and the nickname for your high school.
Ooh, I like that.
A little bit of a personal touch there.
What if we did the remainder of the questions we don't have time for? We pick some sort of giant mystery jacuzzi. We give people clues as to where that mystery jacuzzi is. You and I get in, and we just start talking, Ty. Just start answering questions, and if people figure it out, they can come in the jacuzzi, and we can just have a nice steamy hang sesh answering college football questions. Is that weird? I feel like that's normal.
Is this a cousin of your other idea, which we've never done yet? At least not that anyone knows of.
Yeah.
Where we create a separate, unknown, completely ambiguously titled podcast feed and just put it out there.
Yes.
And then maybe somebody could find it.
Yeah. Well, that one's going to get real heavy. Yeah. That show. By the way, so I just got back from the newsstand because it's college football magazine preview season. And like you and everybody listening, I poop, and so sometimes I need things to read, and those make for great reading. They didn't have any yet, but the thing I love about newsstands, Ty, which I might argue like a great big newsstand, superior to a bookstore in some regards, but the flashy pictures on the front of magazines. I love that there's something for everybody at a newsstand, right? If you're into like air frying potatoes, they gotcha. If you're into bow hunting, they've got like 9 different options for you. I have no idea that like if somebody's more into like bow hunting quarterly or modern bow hunter, but whatever your preference is, a great newsstand has it. You got your adult section type. If you're into like Cuban butts, they gotcha.
Yep.
They did not have college football preview magazines yet, so I'll make my way back there. But like a good newsstand, Ty, I'm hoping that there's something for everybody on this 2-part Q&A.
Nice little segue there.
I'm hoping no matter your interest in the sport, regional, team, narrative, I'm hoping we got something for you. That's all.
Well, we did our best to balance these questions accordingly. We don't want to lean too heavily on any of our platforms or any specific topic. We're trying to cast a wide net here. If you are new to the show, thanks for stopping by, for downloading, for listening. Hit follow or subscribe wherever you're listening or watching us right now. We'd appreciate it. That ensures you get all of our episodes.
Yes.
If you really like what we do and you want to be a super verballer, head on out to verballers.com, verballers.com. Got a bunch of questions from the Patreon community. And as I said at the top,
priority.
Any of like the overflow that we have after doing these 2 episodes this week, those will make their way into the bonus episodes. Again, verballers.com, verballers.com. Dan, shall we get started?
Let's.
Congratulations, Skippy. You've got mail.
You've got mail on the Solid Verbal.
As often as we can, Dan Rubenstein, we pay homage to the fine verballers out there across Patreon, across Twitter or X, Instagram, Facebook, email, Snapchat, TikTok, WhatsApp. I think I got them all. There are probably about a dozen more.
Certainly.
Let's start on Patreon, though, with our good friend Chaka. Super Verballer Chaka.
Yeah.
Kentucky fan Chaka. He said, if you had to bet an amount of money that mattered to you, who is the first coach to get fired in 2024, Dan Rubenstein?
Yeah, who's going to have to pack up their house and move their kids to a new school, a new town, and uproot their lives? Let's start there. Who is the first? I mean, this is schedule dependent, a lot of it, that if somebody's going to be fired in the middle of the season, then certainly the first half of their season is probably going to be pretty brutal, or their team is just bad and they're losing to bad teams. So your big candidates were probably Billy Napier, Sam Pittman, Dave Aranda. People who were maybe a little bit surprised that they were able to get another year after a disappointing 2023. Probably Sam Pittman, since he's been there a while. I might even throw Clark Lee in there. He's something like 2-16 or something in that range in the SEC. And how long is that going to be? Like, you got to win 2 or 3 games a year, it seems, in the SEC for the kind of money Vanderbilt's receiving. So I'm going to say Pittman because of the Petrino hire. It feels almost as if that like they hired their interim. I'm going to say Pittman. The Napier schedule thing, it's more brutal on the back half. I looked at other coaches who've been disappointing. Tony Elliott at Virginia, but he hasn't been there that long.
See, here's what you're missing about Napier, though. First off, the first part of the schedule is kind of brutal. And it's brutal in this way. Okay, it doesn't have any of the heavy SEC hitters, but they opened the season against Miami. You lose to an in-state rival, which is very much on the table. Suddenly, that's going to change perception of where things are headed very quickly. They've also got a game, I think, in the first 5 or 6 weeks against UCF. UCF up and coming. We've talked about them on some of our previous episodes. Just go back last week and listen. UCF's not a bad team. You lose that game. Okay, this is really turning into a crisis. There's even a game before a bye, I believe, against Mississippi State. Who knows what we're going to get out of Mississippi State, new coach. But it just feels like there's so much working against Billy Napier in Florida. The deeper you get into the schedule, you're not wrong. It does get harder the deeper you go, but I don't think the first part is easy either. The other thing I would add is, in addition to the schedule being brutal, in addition to him being part of a lawsuit involving Jaden Rashada, I also think they want to fire him. I don't think we can discount the fact that they kind of want to do it. I'm surprised they didn't already. He is on a very short leash. You can't say the same, at least not to the same degree, for Sam Pittman, because they've also got the tough schedule. It gets harder as you go, right? That, I think, is common among these two guys. But I don't think they want to fire him. I think they really like the guy. They gave him a vote of confidence at the end of the year, which you take with a grain of salt, but I feel like they want it to work out with him. I'm skeptical of the Petrino thing as well, but I don't think they're going to have as quick a trigger. What I can't account for is whether there's Tyson chicken money out there, like there was for John Calipari to bring him to Fayetteville. I don't know if that check extends to the football program.
Well, and to get rid of Sam Pittman, right? The combination of Tyson chicken money and SEC money, yeah.
So that I don't know, as well as some in the Arkansas universe probably do. You can at me and let me know if I'm wrong here, but
please.
I feel like the Napier thing is where I would put my money.
Yeah, the Billy Napier thing is especially disappointing. You look at the brutal schedule, and that's one thing, but you look at their 2023 and off-field stuff and the embarrassment of the whole Jaden Rashada saga, which is now still ongoing. Losing to Utah is somewhat defensible. They were at their healthiest, other than not having Cam Rising last year. I think it was Mizzou and Arkansas were absolutely winnable games. And they lost, that's a 6-second swing. Florida State's, backup quarterback, and Florida has a backup quarterback. Graham Mertz goes down late in the season. And even still, you're still talking about, if everything breaks Florida's way in 2023, like 8-4.
Right.
Like, you're not talking about they were a few seconds away from some crazy impressive season. There were impressive elements. There were defensive playmakers. Guys on Ricky Pearsall stepped up. Graham Mertz was pretty good. There were impressive moves forward for Florida. But those late losses in winnable games and barely eking by and needing every second to beat South Carolina last year, and got a couple lucky plays, I would say, that 4th and 10 play, that it doesn't fill everybody with confidence. You have the DJ Lagway factor that, you want to do everything you can to keep a quarterback of the future who's not from the state. He's from, I think, Texas. So you have that. You have the disappointing end to the recruiting class last year with a bunch of decommits. I think you're right in that finding a reason to get rid of him without having to pay him, and maybe that's the Jaden Rashada lawsuit, would be ideal in some circles of the Florida fan base. But there's still elements of Florida to like and to hope will improve, and that they're not like a nothing team. Like, they could win a bunch of games this year despite the schedule.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad team. I just think it's a bad circumstance with the schedule, and I do think there are headwinds for Billy Napier. I think they want to get rid of him. And I would also add that the sooner you kick up that conversation with Jed Fish, the more likely you are to get him after 1 year at Washington.
Yeah, that's true.
If you want
Jed
him,
Fish,
just start talking now. You know he's willing to listen.
there is something about Jed Fish that, like, he knows the best moving companies. He knows how to find the best schools for his kids. He knows, like, oh, you know, if you're going to buy a new couch, look for this, this, and this. Like, he knows what to look for if you're going to mount your TVs. He knows what to look for in terms of curb appeal. He's been there.
He's a paying Zillow subscriber.
Yes. He knows what to look for in a realtor. He knows, you know, actually, I got to leave my house at this time because traffic in this area is, you know, he knows how to sort of check boxes in terms of what to do with moving. He was like, oh, he knows where to get packing tape.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is that element. Obviously, he goes to Florida, and people have discussed that being one of his dream jobs, allegedly. But in any case, I think Sam Pittman's still my answer.
Second question here. Let's also go back to Patreon. This is a good one. I'm going a little bit out of order, Dan, already.
Okay.
From Marcus. He says, in honor of June, who are your top 3 June-yers?
Okay.
See what he did there?
Wise,
June-yers. College football-wise, yeah.
Because I was going to say Uncle Junior from The Sopranos. That's Carmela's lasagna.
Right.
I was, you know, who actually, okay, let's get to college football. Is there a standout, quintessential, in your lifetime junior across sports, across non-sports, anything? Freddie Prinze Jr., Ernie Reyes Jr. from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. I don't know why he came up. Damon Wayans Jr. from New Girl.
Right.
I think my quintessential junior, other than Uncle Junior, in sports, I think it's still Ken Griffey.
Ken Griffey Jr. Yeah, that was the first name that came to mind.
When your dad is also a name in the exact thing you're doing, played for the Yankees, I believe, too, so big name, and you come around and you're the kid with your backwards hat and you're bashing home runs, I think that's my answer.
Oh, it's absolutely my answer. And as you were talking through that, the first thought that came to mind was Ken Griffey Jr.
It's him or Harry Connick. That is obviously. Who are your third years or redshirt juniors, whatever, that just hold a special place in your heart this year?
If I am picking 3.
Yeah.
If I am only picking 3, which was the question here, top 3. This is subjective.
Uh-huh.
But my 3, the ones that move the needle for me, number 1, Harold Perkins.
Okay.
Harry Perky, beloved Harry Perky here on
moving
the show.
back inside.
I don't know where he's moving. I have no idea what they're doing with him.
Yeah.
I don't think he does either. Brian Kelly does. Nobody knows. Doesn't matter. Harry Perky. Special place in my heart, if only for the nickname. Secondly, Tetaroa McMillan. Not to be confused with Tatiro McMillan.
Yeah, what is going on with you? This 2024 has been a weird year for you, I'd say.
Very bad pronunciation year for me.
Yeah.
Tetaroa McMillan.
Tetaroa. Yeah.
And 3, I would probably be inclined to say James Pierce from, also a junior, I should add. James Pierce
Tennessee?
Jr. from Tennessee, yeah. An actual junior who, if he lives up to third-year hype, if he ends up having the kind of year we thought and stays healthy, will be like a top 5 whatever pick in the NFL draft. Looks to be one of the next great edge rushers to come out of college. So, no disrespect to the Will Johnsons and Quinn Ewers of the world, but those are the 3 for me that, as I was looking through the list, really got me going.
Okay, Jalen Milroe.
Great answer. Great answer.
What will he do in a new system?
No idea.
I'm curious. I'm interested. He has my attention. Kate Klubnik. How about that?
Club level.
You've been like Mr. Club level since day 1, and now this is year 3.
Yep.
I think that's an interesting junior, just in terms of quarterbacks right now. Haynes King, I think, is an interesting junior.
Mm-hmm. He's saying top juniors, though. Are these your tops? Are these your top 3? Haynes King?
I mean, I'm interested in these guys.
Okay.
I'm interested. In terms of the best juniors in the country, probably not. I lean quarterback with this kind of answer. I'm very hopeful, if I'm going to be personal with it, about Jordan James, who I think is going to be the new starting running back for Oregon. And I think, is Ashton Jeanty a junior as well?
Yeah.
Jeanty?
Yeah.
I think those are going to be 2 and they play against each other. I think week 2 or 3 this season, Boise State, Oregon. So it could be a great running back
Always
matchup.
A clash, yeah. There's baggage in that matchup.
Those are my answers. How about that?
Let's go to Twitter and Ben, who says that his high school nickname or mascot was the Wildcats. I'd imagine Wildcats are pretty popular.
What was yours? You were
there.
the Concrete Kids with a problematic K?
Concrete Kids, yeah, spelled KONKRETE. Kids, KIDS.
So you're classic with a K, KKK.
Yes. Now, apparently, that is due to some of like the Germanic roots in the area. That is the reason it is spelled that way. But
shocking.
Shocking. Anytime our high school was ever publicized for sports or anything else out there for people outside the region, they always spelled it wrong. I have heard my fair share of comments about the problematic spelling of my high school's mascot.
The Concrete Kids!
I was a Northampton Concrete Kid here. What were you?
Kids.
What was Calabasas?
Coyotes.
Oh, the Coyotes.
Calabasas Coyotes, and we call it Coyotes. Let's go Coyotes! That kind of thing. The Southern California brah.
We got some folks who just chimed in, not with questions, but just wanted to tell us that Iron Sheffield says he was a Mesquite Skeeter. I'm assuming Mesquite, Texas. Skeeter, class of 2000. Welcome to the party. On Facebook, Jason says, no question, but he was a Spring Lake Earth Wolverine.
Not bad.
Class of 1985. We had a bunch of people chime in. It's like, I don't got a question. I just want to tell you what my high school was.
Did somebody have there was a boas or pythons or something?
We had a pythons. Yeah, we have. I don't know if that's this episode nickname. Or maybe the next one, part 2 that we're going to do.
Pythons is a great one either way. I appreciate that.
Ben, a Wildcat out on Twitter, says that he and his wife have 2 dogs, Dan. One is named Archie after Archie Griffin.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is named Maisie, Maizey, after Michigan's official color.
Yeah.
Puts in parentheses here that it's a house divided. What are some other good college football related names for pets?
I looked this up.
You did. Of course you did.
The master list of FBS mascot names is kind of perfect. It
is perfect.
I wouldn't name your pet, parakeet, dog, cat, iguana, whatever, after a rival's mascot. Or even like an in-conference team that you kind of don't like mascot, but there are so many good mascot names. Hooter, Riptide, Pouncer. Pouncer's at Memphis.
Pouncer's a great dog name.
Baldwin from BC.
I like that.
Buzz, obviously Georgia Tech. Ramses is a great name. Otto is a great pet name. Bruiser, how about that with Baylor?
I like it.
Shasta, the Houston Cougar.
Here is the twist that I'm going to put on this.
Yeah.
You and I, we didn't confer on any of this stuff beforehand. The twist that I'm going to put on this is I love sort of like the Little John strategy of naming a pet. And by that, I mean, find the smallest possible dog, like name your Pomeranian after Bevo.
Right. Like the Little John, from Robin Hood, yeah.
It's fine if you've got a Bernese Mountain Dog and you want to name him Bevo or her Bevo. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I think it gives it an added flair if you've got like a Yorkie and you decide you're going to name the Yorkie Ralphie.
Jumbo,
right? You kind of play off that size disparity. I think that's what I'm good with. Now, I would push back a little bit on Ben. Archie isn't exactly like a hugely common name, but I definitely have an aversion to naming your dog after a common person name. Like, don't name your dog John.
Right.
Or Kevin. I don't know somebody, but I met a Samoyed, a gigantic male Samoyed named Kevin.
Yeah.
Which was kind of funny, but nothing against the Kevins out there who listen to us. I don't think you should name your dog a very common person name. Archie's okay, Ben. I'm okay with this, but I agree with you, Dan. Let's go in the mascot department. Let's go players' last names. I knew a dog named Rocket once, which had a special place in my heart because it was a fellow Notre Dame fan, and they named their pet after Rocket Ishmael. Mm-hmm. I like that approach as well. We could probably do like 6 episodes on the whole naming strategy of the pet thing if you're going to go in the college football direction. But
you know what I would do?
Generally, mascot's kind of where it's at for me.
Go for find a random team that you feel completely neutral about, right? Like, do you have any good or bad thoughts about Wisconsin?
No.
Like, Wisconsin hasn't broken your heart, and you don't love Wisconsin. You have no near tie, no pun intended, to the Badgers, right?
None.
Go through a list of that school's coaches. Go back to like the 20s, 30s, and 40s and name your pet full name and make sure that this is not a problematic individual. It's just like, this guy happened to be their coach from 1928 to 1934. Like, I have Wisconsin's list of coaches from the 20s, 30s, and 40s.
Right.
Like, if you have a Labrador, just name your Labrador Glenn Thistlethwaite. Why not?
Bring back Barry Alvarez, Dan.
I love the older man names, like, or older woman names if you have a female dog or whatever pet. And just like, that's my dog. That's my lab name, Glenn. Like, what, you name your dog Glenn? Yeah, full name is Glenn Thistlethwaite. But that's, I think, or like, find a random year of a baseball team and name your dog Kevin Elster.
Right.
Like, just go for it. Vince Coleman, 1991 Mets.
Again, I'm not big on naming pets after common.
Oh, I love it, man.
Kevin
if
Elster's
you went over
not
to
bad,
somebody's house and they had like a Labradoodle and you're like, oh, that's a cute Labradoodle. What's his name? And they're like, Dave Magadan. Right? You'd be like, would you ever forget that Labradoodle?
I would never forget that.
Not in 1,000 years.
No.
And they'd have to, full name, talk about that Labradoodle. Like, oh, God, Dave Magadan just shit the bed again. Like, it's great.
I can't even. I don't even.
Yes, you can. You might not be able to convince the solid wife, Kate. But that'd be Frank Viola, the Labradoodle.
All right, we got to move on. We
don't.
Here.
Sid Fernandez? Wally Whitehurst?
Wally Whitehurst. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
These are not college football names, though.
Give me a name of a random team you feel neutral about. Big, small, whatever.
Kentucky.
Okay. Here's a list of Kentucky football coaches. Okay? And you tell me what kind of dog do you have? A Samoyed?
Yes.
Okay. Kentucky football seasons. This is what people, this is June talk. You got Harry Gamage from 1927 to 1932. Chet Wynn, Albert Kerwin. How about Bernie Shively?
Bernie Shively is a good name. If you've got a Bernie's Mountain Dog, go Bernie Shively.
You brought Charlie Bradshaw?
Charlie's
Fran
a good dog name.
Kersey? Jerry Claiborne?
All right, we got to move on.
This is perfect, Ty. Dudley Short, 1896, Kentucky State College, went 3-6, 1-1 in the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Association.
Let's go to another Patreon question from HCB.
Okay.
You might not want to answer this one. That's the hook that got me.
Okay.
But I just have to ask. With all the financial changes in college football, and as a fan of a middling Big 12 school, I have found my interest in college football has gone from an 8 on a 1 to 10 scale to maybe a 3. My question is, are you seeing this among your subscribers? Can you tell if some of the non-Power 2 schools fans are struggling like I am? And if you really want to be vulnerable, as we always are here on this show, Dan,
of course,
has it diminished your love for the game of college football?
Okay, so it's June, first of all.
It's June.
So it's easy to be in your feelings in June. And I think it's totally defensible to be in your feelings about whatever the direction you feel like college football is going in, right?
Correct. I agree with that.
So my answer is, if you're a fan of a team that you're not confident has a place at the table or is due to improve anytime soon, I don't know if this is who would be a middling Big 12 team right now. TCU, Baylor,
Texas Tech. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's optimism. There's reason for optimism with most teams. And so if you feel like your team is being left behind, first of all, you're in a power conference. So you're already kind of ahead of the game right now. And two, give it some time. Give it some time. See how you feel during the season. See how you feel on Saturdays. See how you feel on Thursday and Friday nights if your team is playing some weeknight action. And maybe, I presume people still will like football even if they don't like the direction of the sport. Like, I think that people are still going to be interested in big games. They might not watch as much. They might not watch it in the same way. They might not attend games or tailgate or anything like that in the same way if their interest is tamped down a little bit. But I'm going to say give it some time during the season. And I've said this before with people where you just like lean into the social element of the sport. If You're not going to, if you don't feel as rabid about your team, then invite people over and cook out or something like that. And if you're legit not as interested, that happens. That happens. People's lives fluctuate, ebbs and flows with your interests, and maybe it's evolving. And college football certainly is not the most fan-friendly sport. So, I think there is that element. I'm worried about how I'm going to feel about West Coast football this season. And, lamenting and mourning all that stuff that I don't get to watch the random Wazoo Arizona game or the random Oregon State UCLA. That there's all that scar tissue is basically done away with outside of, the Four Corner schools and the LA and Washington, Oregon schools moving on together. That I'm pre-bummed about that for sure.
This is a great question. I'm glad somebody asked it, because I think you and I are in a unique position to answer it, just because we've been having this conversation with our audience for longer than anybody in the college football podcasting sphere. Yeah. We've been at this for a long time now, and we have had the chance to witness along the way some of those moments where I think fans felt left out as the sport changed, or fans lost interest because, let's say, factors beyond their control. We were doing this when the playoffs started, and I remember similar reactions back in 2013, whenever that was.
Yeah.
COVID was awful for a gazillion different reasons.
But the most important one you're going to claim is...
No, I'm going to say at the very bottom of that list.
Yeah.
At the very, very bottom of that list was how it affected college football.
Sure.
Our listeners were very conflicted about celebrating football amid a pandemic. We were as well. The 1-2 punch now of the transfer rules and NIL, that has been an ongoing dilemma that people have struggled with. We've struggled with it at times. And now certainly massive conference realignment, the expanded playoff, the growing emphasis on money, as HCB asked in his or her question, all of that has definitely had an effect. The sense that I get from the verballerhood is that a lot of people don't know how to feel about the new era of things. That it's really easy to be conflicted now, cheering for something that feels almost completely different from what it once was. That's not even a college football thing, Dan. That's just like a life in general thing.
Yeah.
It has impacted everybody to some extent, each of us a little bit differently. As you mentioned earlier, we hate the fact, we both do, that the Pac-12 is gone. But at the end of the day, we still root for teams that will benefit from this new system. I don't feel like it's affected me that much. It has not diminished my love for the game. It has made me more cynical.
Yeah.
More cynical about the powers that be and the forces that are controlling college football. But I don't think it's diminished my love for it. And what I've seen has been an overwhelming state of verballers who are in conflict trying to piece this all together. One thing I have been thinking a lot about, though, kind of along the same lines, and I may write something about this. I haven't figured out exactly how I want to address it, but it's really been stuck in my craw. Like, we've been doing these videos. For anyone who hasn't followed us yet on social media, this is not me begging for you to follow us, but we've been doing a lot of work researching and appreciating some of the finer points of college football, the odd traditions, the weird things that give it its charm. And one of the constants that we've discussed on this show and that I think we found separately as we've gone through our research is that a lot of this stuff happens by accident.
Sure.
It's almost exclusively by accident. These weird traditions that we speak of happen because somebody had a goofy idea and other people thought the goofy idea was fun, and now they're doing it 75 years later. I'm not trying to be a sunshine pumper here, and I get that I'm going to say this and people are probably going to roll their eyes, but I am holding out hope that despite all of this negative black cloud effect that we've had because the sport has changed so rapidly and it feels like it's different now, I am hopeful that we're going to get some happy accidents out of this new system.
We will. We'll get some new bad blood like we got when Texas A&M joined the SEC and they go to 7 overtimes or whatever with LSU, and there's anger on the field after and punches thrown. There's all that kind of stuff that will spring up with new matchups and whatever. But it feels like it's for the wrong reason.
It feels like it's for the wrong reason. And look, I hear that point of view. I get that point of view. I don't disagree with that point of view. And like I said, I'm not going like full Joel Klatt here where I'm going to go on my show and say, this is great for the fans. This is what everybody wants. And
right.
I'm not being paid by Fox, at least
Which
not
fans?
yet.
Exactly, yeah.
So I'm going to be honest here and say it's made me cynical. I understand where people are coming from. And I'm going to hold out hope that the sport continues on the path that it's been on for the last 100 or so odd years, and we get goofy things that emerge from whatever system is in place. That is what I am hopeful for. May happen, may not, but hopefully if that does occur, that can help rekindle the fire for some folks who are taking that wait and see approach.
Yeah, I think there's just that element of you miss the familiarity, and maybe new things will become familiar, but yeah, them being taken away from us and having to read about, well, these schools, these are the average ratings, and they have this many games in which 2 million people watch, and they have this many Instagram followers, and their brand is this strong, so it makes sense that, oh, well, their academics are this. Like, it just, I'm only speaking for me, but it all seems so beside the point when
I get
the
it.
point has always been, like, the variety and the breadth of the geography and the madness that this sport always seems to bring. And you're right, that we'll get new stuff. We absolutely will get new stuff. And I just hope that the cost isn't overwhelming for all the new stuff.
For our own sanity, we're going to try to focus on the highlights on this show. We're going to try not to drone on too much about the negative. And hopefully you can find your community here with us.
Yeah, agree.
Let's go to Facebook and Sam, who has a great question here. Does the portal possibly make it easier or harder for non-traditional powers to improve? And he cites Boise State over the last 20 years, just as an example.
Yeah.
To which I would say yes and yes. I think it's really difficult. I think it's really difficult if you are not Ohio State, if you are Pitt. The example that I always use, and I love Pitt, Pitt is in my state.
Yes.
It's really hard.
Can confirm.
It's really hard. You will always have, I think in this new era, an influx of guys who are looking for playing time. And likewise, as we've seen the last couple seasons, you are certainly going to see high-end talent that decides they want to take their talent elsewhere, either for money or better exposure or better coaching, or look, I can't put myself in any of their heads, but looking for better opportunities, the business decision, if you will. And I think it is incredibly difficult to walk that balance if you are Pat Narduzzi, someone like him. I don't know how you do that. I suspect you need to get very, very sharp when it comes to portal recruiting and managing your roster in advance as much as you can, trying to find some way to understand who might leave, who might stay. I don't know how you manage a roster. My sense is to say that it's harder. It's harder for the non-traditional powers to improve. I think they will always get guys, but the question is the talent that they're getting better than the talent that they're losing on most years? And I think that's sort of like the secret sauce if you can figure that out.
Okay, so a couple things. For a number of teams in the bigger of the G5 conferences, so Mountain West and American, over the last 10, 15 years, the absolute powers in those conferences have been brought up to power conferences. So you look at who the American has lost recently, a playoff team in Cincinnati, the Mountain West overtime with TCU and Utah leaving. So technically speaking, it is a little bit easier to win without them. Now you add in the portal element, which is the root of this question, and I think it's sort of an investment question of who you're willing to buy low on from Power 5 teams that haven't played. And so there's this shuffling among the top of Power 5 teams that they're like always trying to recruit over their current roster, whether that's through the portal or whether that's through high school. So in terms of Boise State, they add, I think, a Washington transfer, an LSU transfer, and the biggest name transfer that they added in this cycle is Malachi Nelson from USC, who for whatever reason saw the writing on the wall that he wasn't going to be a long-term starter for USC football, or they told him he was not going to be a long-term starter. For whatever reason, his potential didn't flash, or it was not a mix, or a match of culture, whatever. And so his high-end talent is now going to be at Boise State. And so for a number of these places, I think geography matters, where you have the option to come back home, like USF. That there's a lot of talent from Florida that finds its way to major places, and for whatever reason it doesn't work out, or they're merely pretty good and they were expecting them to be excellent and they want to play, and there's USF saying like, yeah, we could definitely use you at corner. We could definitely use a right guard of your caliber, even though you haven't really played at Michigan, at Tennessee, at wherever. We see the potential in you, and they offer something, and that is the hope of recruiting over their current roster based on high school potential or something like that. So there is that opportunity. You are probably getting those high-level Power 5 backups at a discount because they want playing time. And so there is that opportunity if you're in Texas, if you're in the South, if you're in Southern California at a place like San Diego State or something like that, and somebody has the option to come back home and get a bunch of playing time. But at the same time, if you find somebody really good in high school and you develop them after a year or two and their price tag is through the roof, it makes it more difficult. Yeah. And so I'd say there's opportunity, but you're going to have to do a lot more due diligence as to find out why that player at a major place, why that safety at Ohio State didn't work out and is willing to transfer to you at Tulane or something like that. But I think there's opportunity. I think it's a lot of work, and I think these are places without a ton of manpower to sit there grinding the tape of, and doing the due diligence and calling position coaches and strength coaches to say, why didn't it work out? Why didn't he develop as that safety at Ohio State? And you might get an answer of like, great kid, pretty good prospect, not of our caliber, we feel, but thinks that there's potential there. And that's the hope, that you can build your roster and find enough of those guys via the portal at a discount that you can continue to compete and replace players who have been poached from your own roster.
It's just like not every guy is Ashton Ginty who decided he's going to stay at Boise State.
Right.
And more often than not, you're having these guys, known quantities that are key contributors leaving, and you're forced to replace them either with guys with far less on-field time or guys who are transferring because they were backups elsewhere. Yeah. And that just makes it really hard. That's why I think it's a little bit harder than it is easier. I think there will be instances, where on occasion you'll have a school pop. It'll all work. It'll be great. It'll be fun. You'll have that. I think
but you're still taking that chance, right? You're still taking the chance that
it's a crapshoot.
Jake Haener is a legit Power 5 quarterback who, when Jacob Eason beat him out, was like, this is BS, I'm leaving. And I think he tried to come back for Kalen DeBoer and follow him to Washington, and it didn't work out, but was absolutely, and beat UCLA, was absolute warrior for Fresno State. But you are, if you're the Bulldogs and Jeff Tedford, taking a chance on him that it's going to work out.
Let's go to Mike on Patreon. He says, everyone has college football 25 thoughts on their mind, and I'm getting way too excited for it myself. I do not have a modern gaming platform and am expecting to purchase whatever I need to fire up the game. Yeah. I also have college friends from way back in the aughts that this game will help me reconnect to. So he goes on in this question, and he's asking us, which platform should I buy? Will there be a dynasty among Verballers?
Continue.
Yeah, he's asking some very specific questions. We're not going to tell you what platform to buy.
Unless?
We've gotten a lot of questions about that. We are going to put something together. You and I both have PS5, so whatever that's worth to you, just know that whatever we would put together would be a PS5 thing in all likelihood.
If Microsoft comes in with a sponsorship, that answer changes.
Well, yeah, of course.
If Microsoft and Sony are like, we cannot let the Solid Verbal get away.
Yes. Well, that would be different.
And we will disclose.
I think the bigger question here, though, is how you convince your significant other to let you buy a console. Or how you convince some of your cheapo buddies to buy a new system, which I think is actually the harder ask. I think Mike touches on the best marketing pitch right in this question, where he says, I also have college friends from way back in the aughts that this game will help me reconnect to. I have read some online discourse from folks talking up this very point. And the stories, to be honest, have been really cool. It has been really cool. And it seems as if there is this groundswell of support for using this game as a way to connect with old friends. And so I think if you're in the position of, man, there's a big price tag on this thing. I want to play the game. I want to get the dynasty going. I want to get the group, the band back together and play this thing, and we can use it to like reconnect on a fun new level.
Yeah.
I think that is the approach that I would take. Reconnecting with old friends. Or
so you got to all decide which
if you've
console.
got young ones.
Yeah.
If you've got young ones, maybe tapping into the tradition of, I used to play this game. It'd be very meaningful for me.
If you got young ones, go outside.
We'll go outside, but I'm just trying to help people out there who might find themselves in a bit of a pickle.
Kate plays video games, right?
She does, yeah.
Oh, what you should do, here's my pro marriage tip. Teach Kate how to play College Football 25 when it comes out, and like go through the fundamentals and just the full sort of outline of the game, because she's obviously familiar with sports, and then just destroy her all the time. And the confidence, and I'm sure she'll be cool with it, just obliterate 77-3 all the time. How fun would that be?
You're a real Casanova, my friend. Look at you.
I know. No, so Mike's question is, which console should he buy?
He's asking what he should buy. I don't think we should tell him what to buy. I'm just telling him what we have.
How do you convince your old friends? Just that you come up with a schedule, and what you have to do is you have to really, in earnest, figure out like what everybody's realistic commitment to a dynasty is, because you don't want to be waiting around all the time for somebody who can never play. So you have to figure out some sort of schedule where it's just like Saturday at 6 a.m. we're rolling, or Friday at 9 p.m. we're rolling, and everybody's on headphones or speakerphone or Discord or however you want to do it, and you just have that standing weekly appointment. Not everybody's going to be able to play 4 days a week or whatever and buzz through a dynasty quickly. I think the best way is decide on a console, decide on a schedule, and decide on a seriousness level. And decide on like a ridiculous once-a-year banquet or something. If you all live in different places, figure out some way to all come together and go to a brewery or something and honor the champion and make fun of the person who came in last place. Figure out a way to bring real life into it.
I think, was it Shane Gillis who went on PMT and he was talking about renting a house with some buddies to play a dynasty over the weekend? Yeah,
it's a dream to do that with my college friends, to do that with West Coast Kevin, to do it with my little brother Alex, who I've played with the most, to do it with you, and just like rent a house somewhere cheap, get a giant projector or something like that, have like a standing food delivery appointment for a long weekend, and just not sleep.
Just not, yeah. I bet your brother's very intense about this game.
He's good. He's NFL more than he is college, but never really played a lot of Madden. Yeah. So we would do a lot of Oregon-Washington games because he went to Washington. And so I lived with him after college for a little while, and like he'd always come over. Like, so that was the natural. I never really got into huge dynasties, but playing friends, playing people online, that was always fun for me.
Raul wants to know, with Northwestern playing most of its home games in a repurposed lacrosse stadium that fits 15,000 fans and is literally on the shores of Lake Michigan, what kind of home field advantage will this give the Cats, if any? You made a video about this, Dan. I did. You are a stone's throw from this portable stadium. What are your initial impressions of what the atmosphere will be like? Will it give them any kind of advantage? Will there be a wicked crosswind coming in off the lake? What are our expectations for this field?
Okay, it's like 20 feet from the lake. It's really close.
Is there a possibility that a ball will end up in the lake?
Oh, yeah.
That would be cool.
Absolutely.
That would be cool.
Like so you combine
errant punt in the lake.
100% happening. Unless they set up some sort of like third baseline like netting.
A net, okay.
It's 100% going to happen. You combine recent Big Ten quarterback play with the winds coming off of Lake Michigan. Yes, there's going to be somebody who just throws the ball out of bounds on 3rd and long to, live to play another down late in the game, and is going to launch it out of bounds, and the wind will carry it. That will happen.
That's awesome. That 100%. Is awesome. See, this is what I was talking about earlier with weird nuances in this new era.
You have potential because it's right next to the athletic facilities and the football facility, literally right next to it. It overlooks it for some sort of like Wrigley Field like chairs on the roof to get a good view.
Okay.
There's that element to it. We remember the Ohio State game from a couple years ago. I think it was a CJ Stroud game.
The wind?
Where you have crazy winds. You already had the Ryan Field advantage of everywhere these Big Ten teams go. It's this big, hulking, loud stadium, right? These overwhelming big house, Beaver Stadium, Ohio Stadium, that you go to Ryan Field and it's like, I can hear everything.
Yeah.
I can hear people in the parking lot on an important third down. And so there was that like ephes element to the old Ryan Field, and it's fully flattened now. They're rebuilding it. So now it's going to be even less because the wind, there's going to be you can't hear any crowd, right? It's wide open and it's freezing. So the home field advantage for Northwestern is going to be that ephes. And it's also, I imagine Northwestern is going to try to run the hell out of the ball more than they are going to throw it with Mikey Wright downfield on the lake. And so maybe they're better prepared to have a creative offense in which they don't need to throw it downfield a ton, that they're going into the season knowing that like we're just not going to be that team. And then they finish out the season in Wrigley in November. Yeah. I think it's Michigan and Ohio State are both in Wrigley at least in November after the baseball season ends. And so it's just going to be freezing in Chicago probably in November. And so, yeah, they're going to build a team that, for better or worse, is not going to chance the fortunes of their season on a big downfield passing game. It's going to be a lot of, I think it's Cam Porter, the running back for Northwestern. So the field won't be weird. It's just going to be like, I don't know if you know what Davis Cup is, the tennis.
Of course, sure.
You strategically schedule your matches somewhere and on some surface that's going to be it's going to be a disadvantage for your opponent coming in. So it's going to be like, well, the Canadian team is going down to Chile and they're playing in a remote place that's hard to get to. There's no accommodations. They're playing on real thick clay. And that's what Northwestern is going to have. And so they'll be prepared for it. You know, the field is the field. You know, the hash markers are the hash markers, the uprights are the uprights, but the wind is going to be sticky. You're going to see some 13-10 affairs in October.
Larry and Sharon Martin Stadium.
Yeah. By the way,
Ryan Field.
So I was there. There is zero construction so far. We're about 2 to 3 months, 2.5 months out from the season starting.
It's going to be like a carnival where they roll up with the Ferris wheel a week before.
And look, maybe that's all it's needed for like temporary bleachers. But I think there has to be some kind of press box and somebody's going to have to announce the game from somewhere. And there are major donors who expect some sort of sweet experience of some kind. So there has to be some sort of construction at some point soon. Literally zero. Walked onto the field, nobody in the area. I mean, it's summer, school's out, so that kind of makes sense. But nothing going, nothing doing.
Zachary out on Twitter, who says he was a Golden Eagle back in high school. Which is more likely to happen? A G5 team wins a playoff game against a healthy opponent, or a non-Big Ten SEC team wins the title? And does either happen in the 2020s?
Which teams do you think have a realistic chance of either of those?
Well, I think if we're looking at
3 years,
if we're looking at it objectively, the question to me is basically asking which happens first: Florida State or Clemson winning a national championship in the new system, or a G5 team knocking off a healthy opponent in the playoffs. And like, I think the healthy opponent in this case is probably the number 5 team in the country. In most cases, that G5 team is going to be the lowest seed in the tournament playing against the number 5 team.
Okay. I would throw Miami into that conversation because at least they recruit on the level of a national championship contender. If you're stringing together top 10 classes, hypothetically, Mario Cristobal could get it right, could nail quarterback, could nail everything.
So let's put it this way then. If we're really going to dumb this down, is it more likely that it's Florida State, Clemson, or Miami winning a title? No offense to the Big 12. I just don't know who's good in the Big 12 right now.
Well, who's going to recruit on that level?
Who's going to recruit on that level? So one of those 3 ACC teams winning a title first, or Tulane going to Bryant-Denny Stadium and beating Alabama. Which is more likely?
I mean, who are the G5 teams right now that you think could build a team that's competitive with a playoff team?
Boise.
I think Tulane is a good answer. I like
Boise,
John Summerall.
Tulane.
I'd hear out San Diego State.
State.
Here's a wild card. You ready for my wild card? If you took Boise has a first-year permanent head coach in Spencer Danielson. But of the proven G5 coaches at their place, which is not many, that have been at their place, I think the ultimate wild card for a G5 team to win a game is Air Force.
Oh.
They've built good defenses, really, really good defenses, and have an offense that on its right day, as you refuse to continue to believe Georgia Tech is an Orange Bowl champion running the option. I think that is an interesting opportunity. That, let's say you have an overinflated Big 12 team that makes the playoff. Well, I guess, look, if they're the Big 12 champion, they're getting a bye. So you have, maybe it's the number 5 team, but they're beat up and they're not taking Air Force seriously. That to me is an interesting answer.
It's so matchup dependent.
It's a crazy matchup dependence here.
I don't know. I'd be inclined to say a non-Big Ten or SEC team wins it first. But I do think, if I'm being honest, the David versus Goliath matchup that we're going to see every year is one bit of that charm that I've referenced a couple times now in this new system. Getting that in a meaningful postseason game is going to be very compelling.
Yeah.
Super compelling.
Yeah, it's just the G5 ranks have been drained, right? Cincinnati's in the Big 12.
That's the hard part. Yeah, that's the hard part.
They've been drained to a certain extent, especially the American, where like UCF would have been an easy answer. Fresno's an interesting answer if Jeff Tedford can nail quarterback once again in the next few years, and he's not young himself, that you do need to build that roster, and Fresno can build a roster with perhaps some P4 transfers. I almost said P5. It's weird. I'm going to say, because the field is bigger with G5 and because there is some home field weirdnesses, because here's what you could also get, right? So let's say Penn State is the Big Ten runner-up, but they're great and they finished 5th in the country. That's reasonable. They host, name your team, Fresno, Air Force, Tulane, whatever. And it's December 20th-ish. It's absolute winter muck. Then what happens in some sort of northern state? And then you're like, first team to 11 wins. I don't know why I said 11. First team to 13, first team to 17. I don't know. That changes a little bit of calculus.
What's your answer? Is your answer then the G5 team?
I think my answer is the G5. I think winning one game is just going to be easier than winning multiple games and limiting it to basically 3 games.
2 questions left here, Dan. 2 questions left.
Okay.
This one comes to us from Tyler out on Instagram, who says that his high school mascot, the Whippets.
Ooh, okay.
The medium-sized British breed, not to be confused with nitrous oxide, Dan.
Whatever you need. Yeah.
He said, what are the 3 best and worst P4, Power 4, coaches to have on your side in a bar fight, Dan? So look, we've gotten every incarnation of coach question.
We probably had this question 3 times.
Yeah. I don't think we have. I remember the coach questions very well.
Oh, we've had coaches fighting. We've had like Rage in the Cage type questions about coaches.
I put some thought into this one. Most of the time, if somebody sends us a coach question, I don't really think too much about it. Because like you said, we've had every garden variety coach question at this point.
Okay.
But this one got me. 3 best, 3 worst.
I want Biff, but he's not P4, right?
Biff is not P4. I did think of Biff.
Yeah.
I think the first one that I go to is Dan Lanning.
In which direction?
Good.
Best or worst? Okay.
You've seen, I've seen, we've all seen the crazy look that
small school Missouri linebacker intensity.
We've seen the crazy look that dude's got in his eyes.
Okay.
So having him by my side in the bar fight's not bad. I would also add Brent Venables, who seems like a total wild card to me. We've seen enough of him on the sidelines to appreciate that he may be a total lunatic.
Yeah, a lot of get back needs. Yeah.
And he's the kind of guy who like cuts himself with the broken bottle on purpose just to intimidate you.
Yeah.
Brent Venables is also on that roster. You also need somebody who I think exudes some degree of calmness, but also could hold his own, which is why I call up Kyle Whittingham. Looks like he's in impeccable shape at 64, perhaps some old man strength there.
Yeah.
Has the calmness about him to break up the fight, to hold back Venables and Lanning. Lord knows what they're going to do. But doesn't seem like the kind of dude you want to piss off. Like
right.
If you took a swing at Kyle Whittingham, I think he could knock you out cold.
Okay.
Those would be the three that came to mind. I also threw James Franklin in here. He didn't ask for a fourth, but James Franklin would come in handy just because he's good enough to talk his way out of it.
Okay. That's
you know,
not fighting, but yeah.
He's got sort of the gift of gab in that respect. He could get you out of it without any kind of punches being exchanged.
Yeah, I mean, again, I would want large dudes who had a mean streak while playing if they were former players. I think Brett Bielema would have your back no matter what. I don't know if he's good in a fight, but I think he's dedicated. He's committed to the bit. Yeah, there's a bunch of former like smaller players.
Right. Like I thought about Marcus Freeman because I would like to go young with my roster of
Kirby
fighters.
Smart was a hard-hitting safety.
Kirby Smart was a hard-hitting safety. Like I thought about Marcus Freeman, but Marcus Freeman seems like more of a lover than a fighter.
Clark Lee, fullback? He'll get in there. Absolutely will get in there.
Clark Lee would take a few swings.
It's easier for me to answer who I wouldn't want. I wouldn't want Lincoln Riley.
He would just run, right?
I don't want Deion Sanders just because I know he's injured, and sadly, I don't want him in a fight. I don't want him to be more injured. He's got a bad foot.
Brian Kelly would not have your back under any circumstance.
Brian Kelly would be tough.
Kenny Dillingham and Eli Drinkwitz are
Kenny
two
Dillingham's
that
small.
I think they would do a lot of talking and get you decked.
Yeah,
indirectly. So I wouldn't want either of those guys in.
I'd take B.O.B. with me. He runs hot.
From Boston.
Yeah.
Tough guy, tough dude.
Absolutely. My number one is still Biff.
Biff Boogie?
Yeah, 100% Biff.
Yeah.
No question in my mind.
Yeah.
Mean Streets of Baltimore? Sleeveless? Yeah, Baltimore. Definitely.
Final question here from Twitter. This is Brian M., who says he was a Mustang.
Okay.
This one's for you, Dan.
All right.
On two fronts. What type of pizza would Dylan Gabriel be? Assuming he were a pizza.
Yeah.
You're the pizza connoisseur between the two of us. You're also an
English
Oregon
muffin.
fan.
The smaller guy.
You're not going to go with the obvious pineapple or Hawaiian pizza?
No. Accurate, crispy. That's where I would go with it. So, maybe some sort of like tavern cut with crispy crust, something like that. Not thick. He's a little bit thick, but not thick like you would want a bigger quarterback to represent Detroit or something like that.
Right.
So, yeah, crispy tavern cut with some spice. Breaks easily, right? The cracker crust
does break easily.
Breaks easily.
Like the thinnest of thin crusts that you can get at Pizza Hut. Not a sponsor, could be.
That'd be tough for me if they were a sponsor. Although, nobody out pizzas the Hut. And I do like the Pizza Hut sauce, or at least I remember liking it. I don't really have a Pizza Hut near me anymore. I remember liking their sauce.
Yeah.
Breadsticks.
Breadsticks are the best.
Let me tell you this, Ty. I know I'm a snob about pizza and food and all that stuff. What is better than finding yourself with extra time at an airport and having a personal pan pizza option there? And it's right out it slides down the chute, right?
Oh, yeah.
They just made it.
Giving me some serious Book It vibes from back in the elementary school days.
I love a personal pan pizza.
Yeah.
I haven't had one since 1993, but my memories of a personal pan pizza are so fond, especially fresh down the chute.
It was a special moment. Growing up, that was special. You went to Pizza Hut, you got the
that.
personal pan pizza.
So maybe that's what it is, right? Dylan Gabriel, a little bit of thickness, a little bit crispy, has that dual threat.
But very special. Very special.
Smaller.
Very special.
Pizza Hut personal pan pizza. Dylan Gabriel. Perhaps with some pepperoni. A little spice.
There you go, Brian.
That's my answer. Personal pan pizza from Pizza Hut.
We workshopped that one very organically. I'm proud of us.
I have such fond memories. I think it's a great pizza.
So look, we've got many more questions here.
Yeah.
That we can't get to on this episode. We're already at about an hour.
Great.
There will be a part 2 on Thursday where we go through more of your questions. Thank you all so much for sending them in. We appreciate it. Your creativity knows no bounds. and we're all better for it. So we've got much more to dive into here on the next episode. Stay tuned, hit follow, hit subscribe so that you don't miss it. Tell your friends about the Solid Verbal. We're going to start cranking things up here as we get through June and into July in preview and preseason mode. There is a lot to come here in 2024 that we're excited about. So verballers.com, of course, if you want to check out what we do on Patreon, verballers.com, ad-free episodes, bonus episodes, Discord access, and a bunch of other stuff that you and I are cooking up in the lab for the coming season.
And we're putting in our bid for Charles Barkley to become the third
host.
This is what we can offer him. Stellar production.
Pizza.
I can definitely hang out and make him some pizza. Auburn talk. Sure. We'll talk more Auburn. War Damn Eagle, Chuck. That's about it. Financially, I don't know how much we can compete, but I think that's a pretty solid offer.
It's not bad. It's better than some others, I'm sure.
It's true.
Dan Rubenstein, this was fun. Let's continue part 2 on our next episode. In the meantime, for that guy over there, Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hildenbrandt, we will talk to you all on Thursday. In the meantime, stay solid.
Peace.